Everyone, we are so glad to have you here with us today for another deep dive. And you are acting as the third mind in the room with us today as we unpack something that is just incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, it really is a wild topic today.
It totally is. So we're looking at excerpts from this essay titled "The Last Great Shared Childhood: Growing Up in the 1980s."
Right.
And the whole mission today is to explore this really weird paradox. Like, how did a complete lack of modern digital technology, so no internet, no smartphones, no GPS, zero streaming, how did that actually engineer this highly connected, universally shared youth culture?
It sounds completely counterintuitive to us today.
Right, because we think of tech as the thing that connects us. So, okay, let's unpack this. I was thinking about it like this. Imagine playing a video game on open world survival mode.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, but in this game, you have no map, there's no fast travel, you don't have that little glowing compass at the top of the screen telling you where to go.
And definitely no online walkthroughs to bail you out when you get stuck.
Exactly. Zero walkthroughs. You just get dropped into the environment and you are told to figure it out. That setup, that total lack of a digital safety net, that was essentially childhood in the 1980s.
What's really fascinating here is that to understand this era, you have to do some, well, active mental subtraction.
Mental subtraction.
Yeah, you have to cognitively strip away all the modern safety nets of instant information that you and I just take for granted. Like, if you are listening to us right now on a smartphone, just think about how often you use it to avoid friction.
Oh, constantly. I mean, I text a friend to see if they're home before I even put my shoes on.
Right, or you pull up a YouTube tutorial the second you don't know how to fix something. Use a search engine to settle a silly debate at dinner. In the 1980s, that information just was not there.
It's hard to even wrap my head around that kind of silence.
It really is. The pace of life was just inherently slower. And because of that, life was really about living the experiences in real time, not, documenting them for an online audience.
Okay, so that mental subtraction really is a trip, because if you don't have a device to just instantly teleport into a chat room, you have to actually navigate your physical world.
You have to literally go out into it.
Which brings us to, like, the ultimate symbol of 1980s mobility, the BMX bicycle.
Yeah.
The sources emphasize this wasn't just a toy, right?
Oh, absolutely not. For a kid back then, a BMX bike was pure freedom. It was the single most important piece of property they could own. Because before you had a bike, your world was literally just walking distance from your front door.
Right, just your block.
Yeah. But the second you got on a bike, that world just expanded exponentially.
Yeah.
Suddenly you could get to the drainage ditches, the far-off parks, empty construction sites, shopping centers.
And the essay mentions specific brands that kids were just obsessed with, like Mongoose, GT, Hero.
Redline, Dino, Hutch. Yeah, the brand loyalty was intense.
And what's wild to me is the customization. Like, they weren't just writing these things off the rack. They were modifying them constantly, putting on number plates, foam pads, stickers.
The nags and pegs.
Yes. The mags, those heavy-duty plastic wheels, and the metal pegs on the axle so you could give a friend a ride. It was their physical connection to their social network. But the way they rode them, man, they were dragging scrap wood into empty lots to build these highly questionable ramps.
It was where the social currency came in. You pull off a successful jump over a scrap wood ramp, and you instantly earn neighborhood respect.
Wait, but even if you crashed, it was still a win.
Right, exactly. A spectacular crash gave you a legendary story. It was local mythology. Scrapes and broken bike parts were just the accepted tax for the adventure.
Okay, but let me push back on this for a second. Looking at this through our modern lens, where parents track their kids on GPS apps, this sounds a little nuts. Like, kids were leaving the house after breakfast and just weren't expected back until dinner.
That's right. When the streetlights came on, you went home.
Was that just widespread parental negligence back then? Or was this hands-off approach actually a feature of the era?
It's so easy for us to label it negligence now, but it was really a prevailing norm that forced early independence. Parents just didn't hover.
Wow.
And because of that, kids learned through raw trial and error. If there was an argument over whose turn it was to hit the jump, there was no parent standing there to play referee.
Oh, that's true. They had to figure it out themselves.
Right. They had to settle disputes, negotiate fairness, solve their own problems. It built this incredible resilience because nobody was stepping in to do it for them.
Okay, so they're outside all day, being wildly independent. But eventually, the streetlights do come on and they go inside. And the sources point out this massive shift. When they finally came indoors, their media consumption wasn't fragmented by algorithms like ours is today.
Not at all. It was highly synchronized.
Right. It was a monoculture. And the holy grail of this was Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh, yeah. It was a true weekly event.
Kids were voluntarily waking up early on a Saturday, pouring a giant bowl of sugary cereal, and just parking in front of the TV for hours.
And remember, there were only a few channels, so millions of kids were having the exact same experience at the exact same time.
Watching shows like Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man.
Thundercats, Scooby-Doo, the Smurfs.
Yeah. And that fueled Monday morning school discussions. You didn't have to ask if your friends saw the new He-Man because everyone saw it. But here's where it gets really interesting to me. The essay argues that the toys for these shows were actually tools for storytelling, not just like collectibles to put on a shelf.
Right.
But wait, kids today have massive, officially sanctioned cinematic universes. They have infinite lore online. But the source suggests 80s kids actually used more imagination. Why is that? How does less information equal more creativity?
Well, it comes down to the limitations. Today, if a kid wants to know a character's backstory or if two heroes would ever meet, they just search it up online.
They find the official wiki.
Exactly. The universe is already built for them. But in the 80s, the lore wasn't instantly searchable. The toys just gave you an aesthetic and a basic premise, so the children had to be the authors.
Ah, so they had to invent the narratives themselves.
Yes. Kids were mashing up universes constantly. You'd have Batman teaming up with Optimus Prime or Darth Vader fighting Cobra Commander.
That is amazing.
There was no internet to tell them they were playing wrong. And you saw this with problem-solving toys, too. Rubik's Cube, Lego, Light-Bright.
Simon, Etch-a-Sketch, Hot Wheels, Matchbox.
Exactly. The toy itself sat inert until the child provided the imagination. The limitation is exactly what unlocked the creativity.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so these kids eventually age out of Saturday morning cartoons. But that need for a synchronized experience doesn't disappear, it just shifts, right?
Right, it shifts toward music and pop culture.
Which brings us to the launch of MTV. The source says this essentially created the first true national youth identity.
It fundamentally changed music.
Yeah.
Before MTV, music was just something you listened to. But MTV made it something you watched.
It dictated fashion, hairstyles, dance moves all across America.
And you cannot talk about this era without talking about the Michael Jackson phenomenon.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a global cultural event. People remember exactly where they were when they saw the Moonwalk for the first time.
And think about the physical effort involved there. Today, if a dance goes viral, there are 1,000 step-by-step tutorials on your phone in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Back then, kids watched the Moonwalk on TV and then just had to try and reverse engineer it in their living rooms or in the school hallways.
It was a physical meme spreading organically.
And operating on that exact same synchronized frequency was professional wrestling, which is so fascinating. The source says these wrestlers weren't even really seen as athletes by the kids. They were real-life superheroes.
They were mythical figures.
Right. You had Hulk Hogan representing courage and strength, Macho Man Randy Savage with this just chaotic intensity.
Ultimate Warrior being pure energy, and Andre the Giant, who was quite literally mythical.
Kids were passionately debating these matches, arguing whether it was real or fake, and it didn't even really matter because the narrative was so strong. But let me challenge the romance of this for a second.
Okay, go for it.
We're talking about MTV heavily dictating fashion and wrestling selling millions of neon shirts. Did this actually create a unified community, or did it just standardize and commercialize youth culture so that everyone looked and acted exactly the same?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's true that it was highly commercial, but what it provided was a vital common language.
A common language?
Yeah, think about it. Before this, a teenager in rural America and a teenager in a major city had very little in common. But suddenly, through MTV and wrestling, they could relate to each other instantly.
Because they shared the same visual touchstones.
Exactly. It created a sense of belonging on a massive national scale.
Okay, I see that. So you have this massive shared pop culture, but you need a place to actually show it off. Which brings us to the physical social networks of the 1980s, the arcade and the mall.
Yes.
Let's talk about the arcade first, because the essay describes it as this total sensory overload of flashing lights and electronic sounds.
It really was. And the high-score boards in those arcades, they created local legends. If you got your initials on the Pac-Man or Donkey Kong machine, you were famous in your town.
So it was basically the original social media clout.
Basically, yeah. Kids would spend entire afternoons there just stretching a handful of quarters as long as they possibly could.
And then you had the mall, which was essentially teenage headquarters. It had the arcades, the music stores, the food courts, the movie theaters. It was this safe environment where kids could practice independence.
But the really crucial part of all this, the arcade, the mall, the neighborhood, was how friendships actually functioned. Friendships required physical effort.
Right, because there's no texting. If you wanted to see someone, you had to knock on their door or bike across town or call their landline and just hope they answered.
You spent hours just talking, arguing, exploring, with no screens competing for your attention.
But wait, the sources argue that these friendships were actually deeper just because they were face to face. Isn't that just classic Gen X nostalgia talking? Like, every generation thinks their childhood was the best.
It's easy to write it off as nostalgia, but this raises a really important question about effort and the concept of friction.
Friction.
Yes. In our world today, connection is almost entirely frictionless. You double tap a photo or send a text, and it takes zero effort. But in the 80s, because it took actual physical work to see a friend, riding a bike for miles just to see if they were even home, the investment in that relationship was inherently higher.
Oh, wow. So the friction is actually what made the bonds so strong.
Exactly. You valued the time because you had to work for it.
So what does this all mean for us today? Synthesizing all of this, it feels like the nostalgia for the 1980s isn't really about the Rubik's Cube or Hulk Hogan.
No, it's not about this stuff.
It's about this profound sense of belonging. It came from millions of kids sharing a common cultural experience that was completely unfiltered by algorithms. It's about how unstructured physical adventure and actual friction fostered deep, deep connections.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating, lingering idea to chew on.
Yeah.
If the incredible digital conveniences of our modern world are exactly the things that isolate us, and the physical friction of the 1980s is what connected people so deeply,
Right.
what modern convenience might you need to intentionally abandon in your own life to rebuild that raw, authentic sense of community?
Wow. What convenience do you need to abandon? That is such a powerful thought to leave on. Thank you so much for joining us. And to you listening, thank you for being the third mind in the room today. Stay curious, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.